Welcome to episode 12 of Take Your Points. This week our special guest is Shane Mulholland, the former Down player, and Cahal Carvill is also with us as well. So Cahal, in last week's paper you had a piece about drugs in the GAA, Fight or Flight it was called, and your point was that the GAA and the GPA really need to look at this issue because it's something that's seriously affecting players' health. What was it? Was there any springboard or reason why you took up that topic?
In terms of all of the articles that I've done to date, I think this got the biggest reaction. Not only, you know, amongst people on Twitter, but I was getting messages from current county players, ex-county players, all saying the same thing, that this is the first time this has really been raised in terms of a GAA issue. Now, other people were saying you can't put all of life skills on the door of the GAA, and I completely agree with that. But some of the points that I did highlight in the piece in relation to what it says under the GPA's website about welfare, and they're talking about fundraisers and, you know, sponsorship of cars and things like that there. If someone has a dependency issue and they go on the GPA website and that's what's coming up, how is that actually helping people? And the GAA as an association is community based, it's grassroots, and it should be for all people within the community. And people who are having a tough time, you know, that's when the actual community gets around them and supports them. And I was just, when I actually researched the point, there was that lack of support that I could see in terms of the literature coming out of both the GAA and the GPA. And like, make no bones about it, this is a major societal issue. I looked at the Pomeroy example, you know, where the parish priest is actually preaching from the sermon about the dangers of drugs in the community. And there's a litany of examples throughout this part of the world. We've talked about mental health, but surely, you know, people who are taking these recreational drugs and think it's absolutely fine, you know, the damage that's being done is real. It's affecting our society, it's affecting every GAA club in Ireland. And I certainly think that the GAA and the GPA should be doing a lot more to try and combat this ill.
Shane, you are a club manager, you've been a player, you've been right through. What was your take on it whenever you read that piece? And is it something that struck home with you?
100% agree with everything Cahal said. Basically, my view would be it is a societal issue. It's broader than just a GAA issue. But to that end, the GAA is a real defining force in most communities. It is a place where people seek solace. It's a place where they get direction and guidance. And to be leading and showing an example to other sports and broader government, social services, etc., it would be fantastic for the GAA to really step up and show the way on drugs and on mental health, because they're clearly connected. So for me, it is disappointing, given that research, to look at those two key pillar elements within the GAA and the GPA, and say, how are you leading the way? Because it has to be coming back. The GPA run surveys with their playing community. They have to be getting that feedback from survey that people are, there's a gambling problem, there's a drug problem, there's an alcohol problem. They have to be seen to be leading the way. And we're not here to bash the GPA, but essentially I was involved way back when it launched, and we had, at one of our first AGMs, we had Brendan Batson come over, who was one of the originators of the English PFA, and he talked about, you know, what they had set up, and they had set up a number of channels for people to help them, you know, injuries and post-playing career and how they dealt with that. But gambling, alcohol and drugs, they're just a huge part of our society, and we have to be dealing with them. And to turn a blind eye or to suggest that it isn't a GAA problem, it's not a GAA problem, but the GAA can affect it by doing something about it, by helping kids. I just don't imagine, we're totally naive if we don't think that there isn't a number of players within each club that haven't partaken and aren't actually dependent on. Like that has to be a reality of where we are today, and if we think otherwise, we're just being delusional.
How do we deal with it though? Like, I mean, if you're gonna say to the players like who's doing it, or do we just have to give them advice?
So the players know. The players know who are taking drugs. The players will know, right? That's the first thing. Management's maybe not know. There's always that separation between the two. I know as a player, I never took any because I was afraid to take it. I was afraid to take it, to have that negative aspect to it. Even that once off, you die. You know, that scenario where you hear stories where that person took a tablet and died. I just thought, I'd let my parents down, I'd let myself down, I'd let my family and club down. So I never wanted to do that. But people do take it, and they do experiment, and some like it and some don't, and some are in the the peer pressure element of we've all got to take it because we're going out tonight, and you're trying to say that that's not happening in a GA club, because we could easily go over the fence and say, oh, it's happening in boxing, oh, it's happening in running, it's happening whatever. It's a societal issue, so it's happening everywhere. But the GA need to lead the way on it and be seen to be that type of organisation, because that's what we look to them for that kind of guidance.
We can't just throw our hands up and say, oh, this isn't our problem, let's look to, who are we going to look to, Stormont in this part of the world? Absolutely not. So I think Jarlath Burns, who is running a presidential hopeful, you know, he showed leadership within not only his school but also in his club, Silverbridge Harps, when he brought in Teresa Burke, who is a campaigner against the ills of drugs in society, and they had a packed house in the hall. I don't know if you know the hall in Silverbridge, but it accommodates a huge amount of people, and it was packed out the door to hear her story and her message about her young son Keelan, who unfortunately died as a result of a drug overdose at 22 years of age. You know, it's every parent's worst nightmare, but this is a reality which is on our doorstep today, and I think the first thing it has to be is the education, whether that's in schools, whether that's in our community, and whether that's in the GAA club. And you know, in our club, you know, the focus of our community is our GAA club. We have hundreds of young kids and in the club week in, week out, and they are an audience and they can be influenced, and getting that message through at an early stage, you know, can only help the situation. Ultimately, people have their own choices to make in life, and you know, you can only educate and try and push them in the right direction, but you can't force it upon someone. But it has to start with education. And are we doing enough as a community? I don't think so. As a government, absolutely not. And as a GAA, as an association, and GPA, there's so much more that we can be doing. And this isn't something that we need to wait 2 or 3 years down the line and push it on. The action has to be taken now.
Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic action point. Just run workshops. Have work groups like that. Have parents or family members of kids that have taken it. Have kids that have taken it that struggle to get off it. Tell their story. That's what's most impactful. When you think of anything in your past, when you think of when someone it had dramatically impacted says it to you, it's a jolt. It makes you think, I don't want to be that person. And like, I've 3 teenagers, and I'm thinking, when's the right time for them to know? Like, the sooner the better. You know, like, to hear that story, and sometimes not from a parent or an immediate family member, from someone else who tells the story, it's just a jolt. And so there's an action plan that could be rolled out across every club in Ireland. And like waves on a beach, it doesn't just happen once, oh, we ticked the box and we did it. It needs to be recurrent. We need to go back again.
Sticking with the point of education and young people in education, last week Shane, you were in Irish News. You did a feature on Saturday about your career, but one of the points that struck me was, whenever you were younger, you were asked if you could play soccer, and you chose to do your A levels. Where maybe I was like, that's a very sensible thing to say, but the conclusion was that was a wrong decision. You said the whole piece was cathartic for you.
Yeah, I mean, I went through a long period of, my inter-county career was actually very short. It was a bit of a fleeting sort of moment. It had a spike and then it went away. And I look back on that and I think I should have had 13 years as an inter-county player. That's what I should have had. And why did I not have that? And for a number of years, I would have blamed other people. I blamed managers, I blamed coaches, I blamed everybody else but me. And where I've gotten to over a period of time was, no, actually, I was responsible for my actions. And so it was just interesting that the article presented an opportunity to sort of convey that, and it was a very public forum and quite a wide readership. And so I've been a wee bit taken aback by the positive messages that have come to me on the back of the article, where people thought you're very honest, and it, you know, I didn't want it to be any other way. I would have been, again, to use that word, delusional if I hadn't have been honest. And you know, you hear the stories. Oh, like we all know fellas that got trials. Like, so you hear everybody gets a trial. You had a trial with somewhere, and actually I get a lot of slagging recently about it wasn't Glasgow Celtic, it was Lurgan Celtic. You know, and in local in Uri there's a Cleary Celtic or a Newry Celtic, and you know, so I get a lot of slagging around those points. But it was an opportunity in a moment that that existed to do the article, and so the feedback has been. A couple of people have said to me, I've read that and I can see myself in that article, so I'm going to do something about it. And I just think that's brilliant. If there's somebody in an early or later stage of their career thinking, I need to maximise this, then brilliant. I'm delighted to have done it then.
It sort of goes back to what we were talking about young people needing to hear it from other young people. They need to hear stories, you know, whether it be to stick with a team or to, you know, stick with your school studies or not do drugs? They need to hear it from the lessons from other people to...
I'm fervent reader of sports autobiographies. Just love reading other people's stories. You know, how they grew up, what they did, what were the influences on their career, how did they react at different times. That's how we connect, is that it's not an abstract thing that you read in a book and it's theoretical. It's based on a person's experience, and you think of all the quotes that adorn, you know, laptops or screensavers or walls in a room and all that sort of stuff. It's all based on things that people say that they've either experienced or lived, and they say, this is what you should do, or in my experience, you should do this. You can think of 10 inspirational quotes that have come from individuals. So it's like, if somebody reads it and it makes a connection with that person, then brilliant, because hopefully for the better. So if anything came out of it other than a bit of slagging, then because people have said to me, how long ago was that, and how did that come up again after so long? But you know, it's just nice to have somebody reach out and say it struck a chord.
Well, it's about perspective. You know, you maybe felt bad about how it ended up, but Andy Waters finished with it by saying like he wished he could have had a minute of your career. Like there's people who loved what you did. But Cahal, you've did pieces as well. We spoke about this in the show about how you're struggling with that end of career and if you're going to stay on and the knee injury and everything. What's your take on that? You know, that need to keep on playing because you'll miss it when it's gone.
I suppose it came as in stark reality to me only 4 weeks ago. I obviously had the Achilles injury, which I've documented previously, and I came back off the crutches out of the boot, and then I was basically teaching myself to walk again, and I wasn't able to go back with the team as yet because the leg wasn't just strong enough. But 4 weeks ago, and that was just about 11 weeks since I actually did the injury, I was having a difficult week in work, and you know, usually my outlet is always the GAA and the sport and going seeing the boys and training and taking that trip up the road to Middlehound, and as the guys would say, my car can drive it on itself at this stage. You know, I've been doing it for that long, but getting back to actually getting on the field and putting on a pair of boots, I left training that night and you'd swear I'd won the lotto. I felt $1 million came down the road, and you know, had been in bad form beforehand, and I just felt great. I was able to run and do the rehab with the guys who were rehabbing it, and for my, you know, we were talking about mental health, for my, you know, my mind, and you know, getting back and playing, you know, it was brilliant. And I think that is one of the key things in terms of us as a community, in terms of your club and where you're from, your identity. It all knits together. And coming towards the end of my career, and I'm under no illusions that this is going to go on forever, but I certainly want to play as long as I can. I have support from my family and friends to do that. This injury was potentially career threatening, and I have worked really hard to get back, and the focus is on the 27th of October, the Ulster semi-final, and to have that feeling of running out onto, and it's in the athletic grounds against Loughneel, massive day for our club, but running out with the boys you've played sport with since you're 8 or 9, and not having that for the first time ever in the championship final when I was on the crutches, but having the chance to do that, you know, it will be a success whether we win the game or not, but that's a success for me. But we can't underestimate, you know, the great work and the fact that being in a GAA club, whether you play for the county, whether you play in the International Rules Series, whatever your, I suppose, mountaintop is, but the great work that our clubs do for young people and for us older generation, you know, can't be underestimated. And you know, that's why I'm very, very proud to be a member of the GAA, to be a member of my club, because you know, what we do, and there's no other organisation in the world like it, what we do for the community and for the area we come from, you know, is unparalleled.
Shane, I wanted to ask you about what you think of your club management career, because it's not just club, obviously. How is that compared to playing? Is it filling the gap, or is it you just love being around the players, or how do you?
It fills a gap, but it doesn't compete with actually playing. There's just no substitute for it, and it's only when it's gone you really look back and realise. And so that's that essence of that article is, don't miss the boat, don't take it for granted. For me, I did stupidly. Like, no better person, Mickey Linden, who's still playing football, said to me, play for as long as you can. Okay, and I didn't. I mean, I quit playing at even at club level at about 30 because I took the senior team. So I was player manager for a year and then stopped playing to manage the senior team, like stupidly, do you know, like you're still a player. But I just find personally, I was very interested in like one of my mates calls it like the Friday Night Lights scenario. It's like, it's the battle of wills, it's the chess match. It's like setting a team up to beat another team, reacting during the game, making changes. They make a move, you make a move. I love that. I really get into that. Those couple of hours on the training field are a getaway from all worries and stresses to just get in that zone, work with a group of players, try and impart some knowledge, make them better. That's fantastic, but nothing beats stepping onto the field, kicking that score, making that block, making that catch, whatever. There's nothing that beats that. But it's a damn good close second to still be involved. In the last couple of years, I've gone from managing a Sigerson team to taking our under 12 team. One guy on social media was saying, I threw my hat in the ring for the down job, you know, and it's like, how can someone manage an under 14 team throw their hat? It's just it's crazy, like, you know. And I'm saying, no, it's just, even working with the kids is just brilliant, because you can see the reaction, and over the course of a year, you're wondering, are they listening? Is anything going in? And then you see little things happening and you think, actually, this is working. You're passing on stuff. I reflect on times, particularly in school, of things that PE teachers would have said that I now hear myself saying to kids. Like, it is such an impact on you. And I'm sure it's in a lot of different sports, but we have something special. And being part of the management setup is brilliant, because you get a little sniff of, you're in that changing room, you're in there at half time. Our club stayed up yesterday in Division 1. We had a good win against Burn, and a couple of results went our way, and we managed to stay up against all the odds. Just that reaction, that sense of feeling. I don't think there's anything else that substitutes that emotion that you feel when you're involved in a sport or a game or a winning score or a match, that you just, it's that sort of fist pump thing that it doesn't exist. Certainly, maybe it doesn't exist in my work and it does in others, but I certainly don't leave the office every day fist pumping, you know. But in sport you get that, and you certainly get that in the GS. So management's been a close substitute, but nothing competes with actually playing.
And just circling back on that, to where we were at the start, talking about people who are taking recreational drugs, and, you know, to try and get, you know, feel good about themselves. There's a prime example. When you play and you win, or even if you compete, you know, and express yourself and do the best you can do, there's that feeling going home that you have achieved something, and nothing can compare to that.
Before we lead into talking about the county finals that are on this weekend and the matches from last weekend, what did you think of Ballyholden's season this year?
We've had a fantastic season. So we lost lucky to get rid of Mr. Poocher after a 6-year run with us, and he's such a big personality and such a big influence on the team and the club. And we had Justy Lynch, who was with him in his last year, step up along with a player, Damien McCrink, who had a cruciate ligament injury, and it was a natural step for him to go. But they've been brilliant. I've only just parachuted in a later stage of the year, just as an extra set of eyeballs on a match day. It really has been my role. But we had the well-documented bit of a scuffle with Downpatrick last year, which made national headlines, unfortunately. But so we started the season where we wouldn't play each other. So you're 4 points down in theory before you start. So for us to have stayed up and avoid the relegation battle playoff, we're very much in the relegation battle all year, but to do it with 2 games less than everybody else has been a fantastic year for us. We blooded about 8 or 9 of our minor team that won a championship last year, and that's been a brilliant thing for them to get that experience of Division 1. We get to a semi-final of a senior championship, only our 3rd time ever, and the first time in a number of years. Unfortunately, that went horribly badly. We went into that game with so much confidence, and maybe a little bit too much confidence, because Warrenpoint put on a serious performance that night. So that aside, that's the blip. But we finished with 7 wins out of 7, so a brilliant year for us. Brilliant for the players and brilliant for those 2 managers to put in the work that they've done. Now, we're really happy with where we are at, and our future looks very bright over the next 2 or 3 years if we can just stay in Division 1. And a bit like the Waddy Graham's team that won 4 minors, and we'll come to them. You know, they're now hopefully starting to see the fruition of a really good underage development plan. And we've had that, and we're in the midst of that. So our future looks quite bright if we can just stay in Division 1, and then the lottery is, can we get them through? Can we get those kids coming through in the numbers that we need them?
Would you jump onto that? What did you think of that Slaughtneil result over Glen Cahal? Because it means something for you, because Middletown plays Slaughtneil hurlers.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much and give away all our secrets for the 27th, but you know, the point with Glen, they have had that success at the Ulster club and brought that through, and you know, I don't think it's being disrespectful to say that in Derry they have been seen as the chokers for quite a number of years. To take that step up and to do it in the style they did, like when was the last time any team scored 3 goals against Slaughtneil? I don't remember it. So they did really well. It can be, you know, double-edged sword for us. Slaughtneil can concentrate fully on the hurling for the 27th and prepare for that there, or else they may see as, you know, that as a disappointing, and it may be a bump in the road in terms of their preparation. I suppose we'll wait to see on the 27th. We'll look after ourselves. We know what they're about. They're, you know, they've been fantastic, and they're, you know, a mean bunch of lads. Like, don't get me wrong, they know how to go to war and how to play both football and hurling. So we know what's ahead of us, and certainly from my perspective, to get back and even to get onto the field would be brilliant. But you know, we as a club can't wait. It being in Armagh as well, and we'll have a massive crowd coming into that game, and with the Dunloy Ballycran game afterwards, it's going to be a real festival of hurling. So I'm looking forward to that. But big respect to Glen in terms of the result, and they will be certainly looking at that final as this is something that we can take that step. And you know, they have brought those players through, and that's without Conor Glass as well, you know, so imagine the formidable force they would be if he was there. But they'll be looking at to try and dominate in Derry like Slaughtneil have done for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
The other games on at the weekend was the Cargill Love Jug. It seems like just Antrim want to make as much money out of the senior championship as they can, like keep on drawing. Like
yeah.
The chairman won't even let them decide on free kicks.
Well, I
more
think,
games for them.
Well, I think, as I pointed out on Twitter for anyone who follows me, the second Portland shot was as wide as a gate. So how the umpires saw that as going over, I don't know. But I think we might have to bring VAR in for those free kick competitions. But again, it was a brilliant match, and say what you want about Antrim football and where the senior team is, and you know, they're trying to strive to be better and everything, but at club level some of those games were absolutely brilliant. And the game at the weekend, you know, Michael McCann's goal was worth the admission fee alone, and for his brother to step up, you know, in those clutch, we've discussed those clutch moments, and to knock that, which was a difficult free, to knock it over at the end to get the draw. You know, everyone went away from that game in Corrigan Park thinking, I'm looking forward to this, to the next match, and you know, I can't wait to get out there. And you know, that's what we love as, you know, club players, as spectators, as coaches, as past players, etc. You want to be at that games, and you know, I certainly think that it makes for a brilliant replay, and I know there'll be even bigger numbers at the final again. Yeah,
there's two massive games this weekend: the Tyrone final and the Down final. Two huge for Ulster GAA. They're just massive, you know. What's your thoughts, Shane, on this county final? You're going to give me...
So we've got this uniqueness of Warrenpoint coming back to a final. I think it's 41 years since their last final. A coming team in Down, and have been for 2 or 3 seasons, bearing the fruit of a really good crop of young players that have come through, and they're kind of steeled by, like John Boyle, who plays for Newry City, is their rock. He is their talisman. He is their go-to. They've... couple of lads coming back from had gone travelling and come back again, and really just they've a really healthy squad of players. They blew us out of the water in the semi-final. Serious pace in their team everywhere, and a team of ball players. Like most, if not all, of their defenders are comfortable in possession, so it gives them a real good opportunity to attack from deep and with pace. So they'll give Kilcoo a lot. The quandary is Kilcoo will not be as open as we were, and their game management is second to none. I mean, this is their 8th final in a row, and what an achievement, no matter what grade it is, to get back 8 years in a row. And a large crop of that players has played through that period, so there's a lot of experience there. Expectation of the younger players coming in as well is that they're also winning underage titles now, so their expectation level is high coming in to that team, that they're just going to assimilate with that. I think it's a game management thing. I think Warrenpoint possibly have more talent and are maybe a bit more dynamic than Kilcoo. Question is, will Warrenpoint turn up in the fashion that turned up against us? Will Kilcoo let them play? And I mean, you know, they're masters of slowing the game down, managing the game, keeping possession when they need to. You know, they'll be happy with a 3-2 half-time score, that type of scenario. But equally, they have a burst in them that they can hit you for 1-2 or 2-2. and then manage that as well. So that's the quandary. That's the interesting part for certainly the Down public and maybe the broader Ulster public, is the novel pairing, and can Warrenpoint take the step to actually to win an Ulster title. Probably Kilcoo will go in as favourites because of just their history and their recent history and their know-how. And there's no small amount of talent in that team either. You know, don't think they're as strong as they were 3-4 years ago. A couple of injuries haven't helped them as well, but they're still there. They're probably there. Burn will be sore and not being there, but they're probably there in merit. They're the most consistent team in Down all year, and despite Mickey Moore and Cahal coming in and not knowing opposition teams, their own team, moving stuff around, they lost. We beat them in the league this year. Again, bit of an experimental team. It looked as if they were trying things out, leading to a championship, and now they're on the cusp of winning it again. It was just a phenomenal achievement for Kilcoo. Can Warrenpoint bridge the gap and win that game? They have all the talent in the world to do so. Question mark if they'll be allowed to play, and secondly whether they can mentally take that step. That's what's going to be interesting for us to see.
And if Kilcoo win and Glen win, it means Mickey Moore would have to manage against Kilcoo in the Ulster Club Championship, which would be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. The other game on is Trillick-Errigal. Tyrone is one of the most incredible championships in Ulster because he never fails to get it. It's crazy how competitive it is. Have you seen much of it, Cahal? Do you think could you even guess which way it's going to go?
To be honest with you, Trillick have done unbelievably well from where they have come from a number of years ago, winning an intermediate championship, to where they are now, having taken that step in terms of winning a senior recently. And Liam Donnelly is being spoken about, maybe in hushed tones in Tyrone, as the next man to take over from Mickey Hart, or some people in Trillick are maybe calling for that to happen sooner rather than later, and maybe we don't want to get into that conversation at this stage. Well, we might be here all night, but you look at that Trillick team, and there's an abundance of talent there. Obviously the Donnellys, and when you have Brennan, putting up big scores as well at a club level, and I think he has been missed certainly at the, and maybe he hasn't been able to take that step in terms of the county team. But the way Trillick play, I think, is set up for him. There's exciting talents in terms of Dara Canavan on the other side in the Errigal team, and the goal that was scored in the semi-final, again similar to Michael McCann's, but he was a box of tricks, and a player that people in Tyrone are getting really excited about. And then you have Hart as well, who is the fulcrum of that team, and you stop him, you stop Errigal. From my point of view, it's a toss-up between the two. Personally, I think that Trillick are good enough and will get over the line. This maybe a wee bit of know-how. Errigal have been playing very well throughout the league, and they were tipped earlier on to win the championship. But I think on the day that Trillick might have a wee bit more in terms of the experience and in terms of those real game changer players, in like Matty Donnelly can win a game on his own if he fancies it. So I'm going for Trillick in that final. And in terms of the Down final, I actually think that Warrenpoint are going to cause an upset. And Darren O'Halloran, who has had a terrible time with injuries, a massive leader not only for Down but also in that Kilcoo team, and Keelan Doherty as well, who has been injured. Put them players back into it, and I think that tips the balance in Kilcoo's favour, given their know-how to date. But doing it 8 years on the bounce, and given the legs in that Warrenpoint team, I think that it's going to be a new dawn in Down, and it makes for a really interesting Ulster Championship, and it'll be one for the ages potentially.
I think we're nearly at the finish. Shane, do you want to have a last word? Have you got to go either way on Trillick-Errigal? How do you call it?
I would have lent slightly towards Errigal, just with the Peter Hart factor and the baby Jesus in terms of being on the field. But again, it looks like that's a toss of a coin game, which it could well be. Don't count out a replay there again. Administrators love the replays, right?
Money on the draw, I think, is what we're saying.
Money on the draw. Yeah. Great. Thanks very much, Shane. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. And thanks again, Cahal.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you.
No problem.